Emily had always been careful with her heart, living her life in a small Oregon town where everyone knew each other and gossip traveled faster than the wind. At 27, she valued stability, honesty, and quiet routines, finding comfort in her predictable world of work at a marketing firm, weekend coffee runs, and evening walks through the park. Yet, despite her content life, there was a part of her that felt a little hollow, a quiet longing for something deeper, something that went beyond the everyday chatter of emails and casual greetings. That's when Daniel arrived, a new colleague whose calm confidence and easy smile seemed to illuminate even the dullest days. From the very first moment they met, there was a spark, subtle yet undeniable, a connection that made Emily feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their friendship started simply, with shared coffee breaks and laughter over minor office frustrations, but gradually, it grew into something more intimate, though neither of them admitted it outright. Daniel had this uncanny way of noticing the little things about her, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the faint crease that appeared on her forehead when she was thinking hard, the softness in her laugh when she let her guard down, and Emily, in turn, found herself drawn to his honesty and quiet strength, the way he listened without judgment and made her feel safe in a world that often demanded performance and perfection. They began sharing small secrets, personal stories, and dreams that they never told anyone else, and Emily felt a sense of trust that was rare, almost intoxicating. She looked forward to their lunch breaks, stayed later at work just to walk out with him, and noticed how her heart raced when his hand brushed hers accidentally as they reached for the same file or laughed at the same joke. There were moments when Emily caught herself staring a little too long, imagining what it might feel like to be closer, to let the walls she had built around herself crumble just a little. One late evening, after an unusually long project meeting, Daniel walked her to her car. The streetlights cast a warm glow over the quiet parking lot, the rain from earlier glistening like tiny diamonds on the pavement. As Emily unlocked her car, she felt his presence behind her and a soft hand brush a stray strand of hair from her face. It was gentle, intimate, and unspoken, a gesture that lingered in her mind long after he stepped away. Her chest tightened in a mixture of hope and fear, and for the first time in a long while, Emily allowed herself to imagine what life could be like if she trusted someone completely, if she let herself fall into the quiet comfort of being seen and cared for. She didn't know it yet, but this moment, this spark of closeness, was the beginning of a journey that would test the very foundation of her heart, her beliefs about trust, and her understanding of love. That night, Emily drove home slowly, the wind whipping through her hair, her mind replaying every small touch, every glance, every laugh she had shared with Daniel. She felt excitement, a little nervousness, and a longing she couldn't ignore, but she also felt a twinge of caution, a whisper in her mind reminding her that trusting someone so completely was both beautiful and dangerous. She went to bed with a fluttering heart, unaware that the bond forming with Daniel was already changing her, shifting her world in ways she couldn't yet understand. The days that followed were filled with fleeting moments of connection, shared lunches, inside jokes, subtle smiles across crowded rooms, and quiet conversations after meetings that stretched late into the evening. Emily noticed herself thinking about Daniel constantly, wondering what he was doing, how he was feeling, and whether he noticed her the way she noticed him. She cherished the feeling of being understood, of having someone who seemed to see her not just as a colleague, but as a person with depth, fears, dreams, and a fragile heart. And as the weeks passed, their friendship grew stronger, more intimate, carrying with it the unspoken tension of emotions neither dared to name. Emily felt herself letting go of the careful walls she had built around her heart, little by little, swept up in the warmth of a trust she had never experienced before. Yet, there was an unspoken tension that lingered in the edges of her joy, a small flicker of doubt, a question she didn't dare voice. Could someone so close to her really understand her completely, and could she trust this feeling without fear? One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel lingered by her car again, talking softly about mundane things, and Emily laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. When he finally stepped away to take a call, she felt a strange emptiness, a longing that surprised her, as if she had been holding her breath and he had been the air she needed. In that moment, Emily understood that she was stepping into something new, something vulnerable and exciting, something that could change her life forever. Little did she know, the trust she was beginning to place in Daniel would soon be tested in ways she could never imagine, and the choices she made now, in this tender space between hope and hesitation, would shape not just her heart, but the course of her life in ways both beautiful and heart-wrenching. But for now, Emily allowed herself to linger in the feeling, to savor the small joys of closeness and understanding, unaware that the journey of trust, love, and heartbreak was only just beginning. As weeks passed, Emily and Daniel's connection deepened, moving beyond casual friendship into a quiet intimacy that neither had spoken aloud but both felt in every glance, every touch, and every shared laugh. Their days were filled with small rituals, morning texts to wish each other a good day, lunch breaks where they found corners of the office to talk about anything and everything, and walks after work that stretched longer than necessary because neither wanted the moment to end. Emily found herself opening up in ways she never had before, sharing memories of her childhood, her fears about failing, and dreams she had almost forgotten, trusting Daniel with the parts of herself she kept hidden from everyone else. And Daniel, in turn, shared pieces of his own past, small vulnerabilities that made him human and real, moments that made Emily's heart ache with empathy and admiration. There was a gentle electricity in their interactions, a feeling of anticipation that tingled in her chest every time their hands brushed while reaching for the same cup of coffee or notebook. One rainy evening, Daniel invited her to his apartment under the pretext of helping with a project, but the atmosphere was warm, scented with vanilla candles and the faint aroma of fresh bread he had baked earlier. Emily felt a flutter of excitement, her heart beating faster as they cooked together, laughter spilling into the small kitchen as sauce splashed onto the counter and their hands touched over bowls and utensils. There was a subtle intimacy in those moments, a closeness that made Emily's stomach twist with longing and happiness. She realized she was falling, completely and unreservedly, for someone she trusted so deeply, yet she didn't want to admit the depth of her feelings, fearing the vulnerability that came with it. As the night wore on, they settled on the couch with cups of tea, watching the rain streak the windows in soft silver lines, and Emily felt a peace she hadn't known in years. But just as her heart leaned toward hope, Daniel's phone rang, and the sudden tension in his eyes startled her. His voice, normally calm and reassuring, became clipped, guarded, and Emily caught a flicker of worry she had never seen before. Her stomach sank, a cold whisper of doubt cutting through the warmth of the evening, but she forced a smile, telling herself it was nothing, that trusting someone meant accepting their flaws and complexities. Yet, that night, lying in bed, her mind replayed every moment. Every look, and every hesitation, and Emily realized that trust was fragile, delicate, and sometimes terrifying. She felt the weight of emotions she had not anticipated, the thrill of closeness, the joy of being understood, but also a quiet fear of being hurt if her trust was misplaced. Over the next days, they spent more time together, each encounter layered with subtle longing and a magnetic pull that neither could resist. Emily noticed how her thoughts constantly returned to Daniel, the curve of his smile, the warmth in his voice, the way he seemed to anticipate her moods before she even spoke. She wanted to believe that their bond was unshakable, that the connection they shared was strong enough to weather any storm, yet the moments of distance she sometimes glimpsed in his eyes whispered a story she couldn't fully read. One afternoon, as they left work together, Daniel slipped his hand into hers for the first time, a tentative gesture, yet full of unspoken promise. Emily's heart soared, a rush of happiness and relief washing over her, but it was tinged with uncertainty. Was this trust too sudden, too complete, too risky? The days blurred into nights filled with texts, calls, and secret smiles exchanged across crowded streets, and Emily felt a joy she hadn't experienced in years, a quiet sense of belonging she had longed for without realizing it. They shared jokes no one else understood, whispered dreams about traveling and living freely, and lingered in moments that felt suspended in time. Each encounter left Emily both exhilarated and anxious, her heart oscillating between hope and fear, craving more yet dreading the possibility of disappointment. Then, one rainy night, as they walked along the lamplit streets after dinner, Daniel paused and looked at her with a softness that took her breath away, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. Emily's heart thumped in her chest, the rain dripping down in soft patterns around them, and she felt utterly vulnerable yet entirely alive, trusting someone so completely that it scared her in ways she couldn't describe. But just as the moment stretched beautifully, Daniel's expression shifted, a shadow of worry crossing his face, and he muttered something about needing to step away for a call. Emily watched him disappear into the misty night, heart aching with longing and confusion, the sense of trust and closeness suddenly mingled with uncertainty. That night, as she lay in her bed, Emily thought about every laugh, every touch, every shared secret, and wondered if trusting someone so deeply was worth the potential heartbreak. She knew she was falling, knew her heart was entwined with his in a way that made it nearly impossible to step back, yet a quiet voice whispered caution, reminding her that life could change in a heartbeat. And as sleep finally claimed her, Emily realized that the bond she shared with Daniel was already shaping her world, awakening emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel, igniting a longing for love, intimacy, and trust that she couldn't ignore. Little did she know that the very trust she was building with Daniel, the gentle closeness she cherished so dearly, would soon be tested in ways that would challenge everything she believed about love, honesty, and the human heart, and the choices she made in the days ahead would not only shape her relationship with him but also redefine the way she understood herself and her capacity to love. For now, however, Emily allowed herself to linger in the warmth of connection, to savor the stolen moments of happiness and intimacy, and to quietly hope that the man she trusted so completely would continue to be the safe harbor her heart had been searching for all along. Emily thought she knew Daniel completely, believed that their bond was unshakable, but over time, small things began to trouble her, missed calls, fleeting expressions of hesitation, moments when his eyes seemed distant or preoccupied. At first, she tried to ignore them, brushing aside her instincts with reassurances from his words, telling herself that trusting someone meant accepting their imperfections and giving them space. But one evening, after a long day at work, Emily noticed Daniel's laptop left unlocked on his desk while he stepped out to answer a call, and a message appeared on the screen that made her heart lurch in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't malicious or hurtful, but it revealed parts of his life he hadn't shared with her, conversations and plans she hadn't been included in, secrets that made her feel like she had been standing just outside the circle of his reality. Her hands trembled as she read, a mixture of shock, confusion, and sorrow washing over her, and suddenly the trust she had placed so completely in Daniel felt fragile, like a thin sheet of ice beneath her feet. She felt a pang of betrayal, not because he had done anything intentionally wrong, but because the depth of honesty she had believed in had been only partially true, and the realization hit harder than she could have anticipated. Emily's mind raced with questions. Had she misread their closeness, or had Daniel been holding back to protect her from parts of his life he thought might frighten or hurt her? The silence that followed in the empty apartment seemed to echo all the doubts she had ignored, and she felt a heaviness in her chest, a dull ache that was equal parts heartbreak and longing. That night, she couldn't sleep, replaying every word, every glance, every moment they had shared, searching for signs she might have missed, wondering whether the man she trusted so deeply had truly been the same person she thought she knew. In the following days, Emily approached Daniel with cautious questions, trying to understand, to seek clarity, but each conversation seemed to open more uncertainty than closure. His explanations were gentle and apologetic, yet she noticed hesitation in his voice, a carefulness that suggested there were still things unsaid, corners of his life that remained hidden. Emily felt a mixture of anger, disappointment, and longing, anger at being kept in the dark, disappointment that their closeness wasn't as complete as she had believed, and longing for the warmth and understanding she had once felt without question. She found herself wandering the streets at night, replaying memories of laughter and quiet confessions, feeling a bittersweet ache as rain fell softly around her, washing over her shoulders as if it could cleanse her confusion and heartache. Her friends noticed a subtle change, the quiet weight in her eyes, the way she hesitated before talking about Daniel, and she realized that trust, once shaken, left a mark that no amount of hope could instantly erase. One evening, determined to face the truth, Emily asked Daniel to meet her at a small cafe where they had shared many meaningful conversations. The air was thick with tension as he arrived, the usual ease between them replaced with nervousness, an unspoken acknowledgement that something significant had shifted. They sat across from each other, hands occasionally brushing, eyes locking in moments that carried both longing and unspoken fear. Emily's voice trembled as she asked the questions she had been holding inside for weeks, and Daniel's response was a mixture of honesty and regret, a careful confession of the struggles, burdens, and decisions he had been handling privately, things he hadn't shared because he feared it might change how she saw him. Hearing him speak, Emily felt both relief and a deeper ache, the relief of understanding why things had seemed off, and the ache of realizing that trust was fragile, delicate, and sometimes complicated beyond imagination. She recognized that love wasn't just about laughter, closeness, or intimacy, it was about vulnerability, the courage to reveal one's whole self, and the pain that sometimes came when pieces of that self were hidden. As the cafe lights flickered and the night deepened outside, Emily felt a mixture of sorrow and longing, the bittersweet realization that someone could be deeply meaningful in her life and still carry shadows she hadn't known about. She left the cafe that night with her mind spinning, heart heavy yet strangely alive, knowing that her trust had been challenged in a way that forced her to confront the very essence of love, honesty, and intimacy. The following days were a blur of emotions, hope mingled with doubt, joy danced with heartbreak, and every message or glance from Daniel carried an undercurrent of complexity she had never anticipated. Emily realized that relationships weren't just about shared moments of happiness but about navigating the hidden layers, understanding imperfections, and deciding whether the connection was worth the risk of vulnerability. And as she walked alone one rainy evening, the streets quiet and glistening under the soft city lights, she felt the depth of her emotions fully, the longing, the disappointment, and the undeniable attachment that refused to let go. She understood, in that moment, that life could shift in a heartbeat when trust was broken or shaken, and that love, even when complicated, demanded courage, resilience, and the willingness to forgive, understand, and sometimes wait for clarity. Her heart ached with the knowledge that Daniel's flaws and secrets didn't diminish the connection they shared, but they also reminded her that trusting someone completely was a risk she had to navigate carefully, balancing hope with caution, desire with prudence. Emily's nights became a mixture of reflection and yearning, replaying every interaction, every shared smile, every whispered confession, trying to reconcile the man she had trusted with the man she now knew, a man who was human, flawed, yet profoundly meaningful to her. She knew the journey wasn't over, that the hardest choices lay ahead, and that the way she responded to this moment of doubt would determine whether their bond could grow stronger or crumble under the weight of unspoken truths. As she sat alone by her window, watching the rain streak the glass, Emily felt the delicate tension between heartbreak and hope, the painful beauty of realizing that trusting someone completely could change her life in ways both terrifying and transformative, and she silently vowed to navigate the path ahead with both courage and an open heart, knowing that the choices she made now would shape not only her relationship with Daniel but also her understanding of love, trust, and the human capacity for connection. The storm outside mirrored the storm within her, and Emily, in that quiet, reflective moment, understood that life could never remain the same after such revelations, that the trust she had given so freely was already altering her in ways she hadn't anticipated, and that the next step, whether toward forgiveness, reconciliation, or heartbreak, would define the path of her heart for the days to come. The next morning, Emily woke with a mix of apprehension and resolve, knowing that today she had to face Daniel and the truth between them, and as she walked toward the small cafe where they had first shared so many conversations, her heart pounded with hope and fear in equal measure. When Daniel arrived, there was a quiet tension in his expression, an unspoken acknowledgement that their connection had been tested, that the trust they had built was fragile yet precious. They sat across from each other, the morning sun streaming through the windows and casting a warm glow on the table, and Emily realized that the man she trusted was no longer someone unknown, but someone human, flawed, and deeply sincere. She spoke first, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest, telling him how much she had felt hurt, confused, and uncertain over the past days, and Daniel listened with quiet patience, eyes filled with remorse and understanding. He explained, gently and honestly, the reasons he had kept parts of his life private, the fears and burdens that had held him back, and the moments when he had worried about losing her trust entirely. Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a mixture of sorrow and relief, heartbreak and love, as she realized that his secrecy had not been betrayal but fear, and that beneath it all, the connection they shared was real, tender, and resilient. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe fully, the weight in her chest lifting slightly, and she noticed the way Daniel's hands reached for hers across the table, a silent plea for forgiveness and understanding. They talked for hours, sharing emotions they had tucked away, fears they had both held close, and hopes they had quietly nurtured for the future. Emily discovered that love was not just about perfect honesty or flawless timing, but about the courage to face vulnerability, the strength to forgive, and the willingness to accept someone wholly, flaws and all. As they walked out into the soft morning light together, hands intertwined, Emily felt a warmth she hadn't known in weeks, a gentle certainty that their bond, tested and shaken, had the potential to grow even stronger. Over the following days, their relationship slowly regained its rhythm, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments that spoke volumes without words. Emily learned to navigate the delicate balance between trust and caution, allowing herself to be seen while recognizing that both she and Daniel were works in progress, capable of mistakes, yet capable of love that was genuine and deep. They discovered joy in small things, a walk in the park, cooking dinner together, exchanging late-night texts filled with humor and affection, or simply sitting quietly with coffee and conversation that felt like home. Emily realized that trusting someone completely was not a guarantee against hurt, but it was an act of bravery, a declaration that love was worth risk, worth hope, worth opening one's heart fully even when uncertainty lingered. Each moment with Daniel reminded her of the depth of human connection, of the way hearts could intertwine even amid past fears and present challenges, and she felt grateful for the chance to rebuild, to understand, and to choose love consciously and courageously. One evening, as they walked beneath the glow of streetlights, rain softly misting around them, Daniel stopped and looked into Emily's eyes, his gaze steady and sincere, and she felt the echo of all they had endured, the confusion, the doubts, the longing, and how it had led them to this fragile, beautiful place of understanding. Emily smiled, a mix of relief, hope, and tenderness warming her chest, and she realized that life had changed because of trust, because she had dared to open her heart fully, and because Daniel had met her courage with honesty, vulnerability, and care. She understood now that love was never perfect, that it could be complicated, that it could hurt, yet it was also transformative, healing, and life-affirming, capable of turning fear into strength and heartbreak into growth. As they walked hand in hand toward the horizon, the city lights reflecting in puddles and the quiet hum of life around them, Emily felt a sense of peace, knowing that the journey of love was ongoing, that trust was a gift to be nurtured, and that even when life tested the heart, hope and connection could prevail. She had trusted Daniel completely, and though that trust had been challenged, it had not been destroyed. Instead, it had evolved into a bond richer, deeper, and more meaningful than she could have imagined. And in that quiet moment, as the wind brushed their faces and their hands remained entwined, Emily realized that trusting someone was not a risk to avoid, but a leap of faith that could change her life entirely, and that the courage to open her heart had brought her to a place of love, understanding, and hope she would carry forever.